Hello, everyone. How are you doing? And welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show, where we have the discussions that inform, entertain, and challenge educators to be the change. I am your host, Dr. Will, and today I am here with LaVonna Roth. How are you doing, LaVonna?
I'm doing fantastic. Hello, everybody. Or should I say shine-tastic?
Yes. Thank you for being a guest on the show. You are no stranger to the podcast.
Correct. And I am thrilled to be back. Thank you, Dr. Will.
Well, thank you, LaVonna, always blessing us with your shine. As I was telling you and the people who are following this podcast, season 4 is all about educators taking control over their lives, their career, and their money. And part of what I have been talking about is educators getting a side hustle and really maximizing the talents they already have, what they're already doing in their classrooms, what they're presenting on conferences about, writing for EdSurge, what all of these places, and to really, get paid for what they're doing and not just putting it out there for free. And so you have been doing this for a while. And I wanted to have you on to talk about your journey and your experiences and hopefully give the listeners and the future viewers some insight and information where if they wanted to take that first step, they would know how to do so. So for those who will be watching in the future on YouTube or listening on SoundCloud or iTunes, will you please introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. LaVonna Roth here, and I am creator and founder of Ignite Your S.H.I.N.E and author of 8 books. And I have been consulting for a while now. I can't believe it, but April 8th will actually be 10 years for me of doing this. So I cannot, time flies, but yeah, it's going to be a decade. And I'm like, what? How's that possible? But having fun along the way. So that's what's most important.
That's fantastic. So what is an education consultant and what does your day-to-day look like?
Educational consultant would be somebody who has a certain, and this is going to, everything I'm going to say is going to be from my viewpoint and my opinion, but I always encourage everyone to get others' opinions too and insights and what they've learned. But for me, an educational consultant has to do with, a certain area that you can help others in, specifically in education, and then going in and talking with others about it, working with them on deeper content and understanding of what a strategy or pedagogy might look like. And it can be anywhere from keynotes to going into doing full day workshops to doing half day workshops, parents, students, one-on-one, small group. I mean, it really can be anything that you want it to be, but it's just you having a knowledge base that others need and that you can do. As far as a day-to-day, Dr. Will, I don't know. There's no typical day. I will tell you as an educational consultant, I don't think you will ever be bored unless you choose to be. There's always learning on your own that you're doing, especially from the perspective of this is a business too, that in most educators, we don't have a business degree. Now some may, but the majority of us don't. So it's a learning curve there, but there's nothing typical about it at all. Some days I'm on the road traveling and landing at midnight and getting my hotel into bed about 1:30 in the morning to be back up at 6 a.m. I'm gonna give you the not so glorious side of things at times, to then be presenting and rushing back to the airport to get the gas, return the car, speak, or catch the flight to then go to the next place to speak. So it can be a very, very crazy world, but the beauty of it is that you are your own boss in most cases, unless you work for a company as a consultant. But if you're on your own, you're your own boss. So you kind of decide what do you want to take and what do you not want to take and how crazy do you want it to be.
Okay, so since you just brought this up, I want to throw this out there to you when you mention the business side of it. It's easy, if you know what you're doing, to actually do the work in terms of the presenting, the training, the coaching, because this is what we do. We've had so many years of experience doing this. But it's that business side that will be new. Finding clients, billing, how do you deal with travel and contracts and those things? What is it like that business? What is the learning curve for that business piece in order for you to be successful?
Mm-hmm. So for me, it's huge. That was the biggest component. And I ended up working for other business companies too that were educational. At the same time, I learned some things, but I don't think people quite realize all that they're going into. And you can totally do consulting on the side. You can make it as big as you want, as small as you want. I never imagined going down this path at all. I was going to become an administrator, and that's how I imagined I would end up in retiring that way. And it's not something that I foresaw. So when I did step out, I was like, okay, so I'm going to do this for a while. Maybe I'll work for some companies. Maybe I'll go on my own. But I did step out on my own completely. And like I said, I really thought I'd go back and do something different, but it did not happen. The curve is a lot of what you were just saying. People think when you consult that it's, oh, I get to go share the message. You get to motivate people. I get to make a difference in kids' lives. And that is probably your why behind it, or should be a part of your why behind it. But then there's everything you just said. There is the accounting and the taxes, and there's the marketing and the contracts and the invoices and proposals, and what does this look like, strategy, plus the content of how do you tweak it based upon the participants that you have and where you are going. Because that's not, even when people sometimes say, oh, well, that person does the same presentation. It's still not the same presentation, because this time it's kindergarten teachers only for an hour, and then the next time it's 3 hours long, but you have K-12, and then the next time you know what I mean. It's always changing. So I'm always tweaking my presentations. Then there's the side of the travel, and everything goes into traveling. And can I get there the night before? If so, what time? But if I'm coming from this place, can it happen? I mean, there have been times that we have literally been looking at boats and trains and everything because something happened travel-wise that suddenly you're like, what do I do with this? Because I have to be there tomorrow. 800 teachers are waiting, so it gets to be a little bit of a crazy world. But I don't think anybody ever quite imagines what all goes into it from the business side of things.
And one thing for me on the business side that kind of smacked me in the face earlier this year was I was excited because an organization reached out to me, and then they said, you pay for your airfare, et cetera, and we'll reimburse you. And I'm thinking, you're going to do what? So you're not going to pay for that up front? You want me to pay all of this money up front and then wait for you, whether it be a net 30 or a net 60, for me to get my money back? That I was like, come on now, that doesn't make sense to me. And then I reached out to other people who do the work, and they said, hey man, that's just common practice. And sometimes I have to wait, 2 months before I get my money back.
Yep. It's not uncommon to take at least 30 to 60 days to be paid. And I have been paid as long as, I just had this conversation with someone today, it took 12 months to pay me. And so when you're a huge company, that isn't quite as big of a deal because you have ways to buffer that. But when you are a solo person trying to make a living from this to maybe someday be able to retire, that is a whole different story. But you have to be prepped for all of those things and so much more.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. See, and that's one of the reasons, my wife and I are looking to transition to offering courses to teachers, because we don't have to wait to get paid. They sign up for the course, they pay for the course, we get paid then. There is no going to wait for the money, because I don't like waiting for my money, because you didn't wait for my, you know what I'm saying? You didn't wait for my workshop. I don't want to wait for my money. So tell us about LaVonna Inc., because I know you did go through a name change. And what was the pain point behind actually starting your own company?
Mm-hmm. So, I did go through a name change, and it's funny because I'm considering another name change. And I think that's one of the hard things is when you start this, unless you're going to be doing this. Mine was because I had a really rough experience with a company that, let me just say, toxic as I've ever seen it. And that was the drive for me to jump. And I didn't know what I was doing. So I was like, well, I have about 24 hours to think of a name, because I know that I want to register this as an LLC. So I have some liability protection, but I didn't know really what all to call it. So I came up with a name, and then I changed that to another name, and I changed that to LaVonna Inc. And it's been a ebb and flow process. So when you talk about a pain point, I came at it from initially my pain point was I cannot work for this company anymore. And it was in the middle of the school year, was I wasn't going to go back to school, and I wasn't sure that's exactly what I wanted. I knew I love kids and I love education. So I knew I wanted to stay in that field, but I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like anymore. And so I ended up starting my company, and I'll just kind of leave all the names out because it'll get to be too confusing. But my whole point was I literally did anything. And I mean, it's one of those that as educators, we get so much knowledge about so many different practices and strategies. And so I'll never forget the first customer that I had. I went there for one specific reason, but I quickly found out that they didn't even, for example, know what a small group was. And I was shocked because we'd been doing small groups for so long that I was like, what do you teach, whole group only? And they're like, yeah. Well, that led to, okay, then hold on here. Let's revamp some of this. Let's come in, teach you how to differentiate and work with small groups. And then it was like, well, hey, we need some classroom management things. I'm like, well, I actually am an independent facilitator of teaching with love and logic. So, okay, I can do that. And all of these things, like I can do that, and that. But I felt like, it's kind of like that saying, a jack of all trades, a master of none. You know, and I could do it well enough and get you started and all that. But it was a good starting point, I'm gonna put it that way, but now understanding more so, like I'm very big on, hey, somebody reaches out and they say, LaVonna, we want you to come speak on, do you talk on this topic? And if I do, I totally say yes, absolutely, and here's how I do it and why and ways that could work. If I can't, then I refer them to somebody else. And that's not something I did in the beginning because it was more of a, okay, you want me to come in? Okay, what do you need? Okay, I can do that. And it wasn't in dishonesty in any way. I want to make sure that's very clear. I did have information and knowledge and ways to do it in my classroom, but I wasn't someone who was very specific on that. But what that evolved to was finding my niche, was finding out what is my passion, what is it? And so it wasn't until I went to a neuroscience conference that I went, oh my goodness, this is exactly why those strategies worked in my classroom, and that is exactly why those did not work in my classroom. And that provided me an understanding and the passion to say, okay, how does the brain learn? And so here we are, like, oh gosh, years later, I mean, at least 8 now. And I started writing books, so that's what the 8 books are on, is, how does the brain learn, and strategy specific. So Brain-Powered Strategies to Engage All Learners was my first resource, my first book. And then that led to the 7, based on grade level, Brain-Powered Lessons to Engage All Learners. And to be honest with you, that was what I really thought was going to help change practices in education to specifically move away from worksheets. So that first book, Brain-Powered Strategies to Engage All Learners, was actually first called Kinesthetic Worksheets. And that was because I wanted it to change up worksheets. It's not about the sit and get. The brain doesn't learn that way. But I didn't end up calling it that because teachers thought it was still about worksheets. But that fired my passion. But what I found is that in order to actually teach the brain, you have to get the brain into a state of learning. And you have to calm any outside thing, whether we think it's our responsibility or not, and in my opinion it is, when a child comes in from a home situation that is not healthy, not good, how do we transition that kid and get them to feel safe? So because of all of that, I launched Ignite Your S.H.I.N.E. And that's exactly, S.H.I.N.E is all about that social emotional well-being and that whole child. But what I've found from it is that it's the teachers in the audience that come up to me and say, do you know how bad I needed that? And I realized that everybody has to shine to help each other. So especially leaders have to shine to help teachers, and they're also leaders, but administration leaders, to teacher leaders, to students, to parents, families, community. All of that has to come from that understanding that we all have strengths and gifts, and we take that with our passions and create a pathway with that. So it's kind of a long answer of my journey, but it has been, like I said, about 10 years, a little longer than that. But that's kind of the nutshell of, some of the pain points that caused it. And I will tell you, there are times I am exhausted, flat out. This in the past week alone, I've had 2 nights of only 2.5 hours of sleep. But the passion drives me immensely, and knowing that the stories I get, and the teachers and administrators and students. I just worked with a whole group of New Jersey students over last Friday, and the stories of what they're telling and sharing and the way they honor and value each other, that's what it's about. So here's the passion coming out, as you can see. So I'm just going to close down for right now because I'll keep going.
Hey, that's what I want to hear, because I know there are educators out there who they see this. They see the freedom in it. They see options for themselves. However, they feel as though leaving the classroom to do this would be betraying something in themselves, because they are no longer in the classroom. But for you to share that passion, to show them that you can still do that type of work, but from a different perspective, is something that, I want them to understand that this is available to them.
Yes. No, I agree. I agree. And for some reason, there is, for lack of a better word, I'm going to use the word shame, that educators can be shamed for making money. They can be shamed for stepping out of the classroom. And yet anyone else in the world can do it. And it's not thought of twice, and I think of a part of the shift that took for me, and I'll tell you, a lot of new consultants, we have this conversation that it's difficult to understand that it's okay to value who you are and what you offer, and to create a pathway that allows that to happen. Everybody else does it. So why do educators have to stay in a bubble of you can only make this much, you can only do this thing? Because there's so much more to this world. And there's, what I've learned is that there's a larger impact you can make too. And I don't encourage anyone to step out of the classroom unless they're ready. But if you're doing it on the side, especially, and that feeds you, and you are doing what's great for education and broadening the thinking and creating innovation and whatever else might come. I mean, there's a whole list there. Do it. It's just, I've never had a more, how do I put this? It's not an easy road. I will say that. It's not an easy road at all, but it is extremely worth it.
I hear you. This is a no shame free zone on the Dr. Will Show. I am all about that money. And I tell teachers that all the time, because if an organization reaches out to me and says, will you write this article? I will. What is your fee? Because I am not going to write that article for nothing. Now, if you said, Will, would you write something? Yes, LaVonna, I'm there, because we have that relationship. But I'm talking about a corporation where somebody's getting paid, then Will is getting paid.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the difference that people have to realize too, is that, if you were just about the thing, but if you are about the money and making that difference, that why, that's what it's about. And so you, at this point, when you step into consulting, you are a business. That's something that you have to begin to recognize and create that mind shift. And it's up to you. I mean, I still go do talks for free. It depends upon the situation. It depends upon a variety of things. But at the same time, I do have to make a living, and I have, my own financial things that I'm looking to do. And I, for example, I taught in Ohio for 5 years, and I taught in Florida for 5 years, which you had to do 6 in each to be vested for retirement. So this also has to be my retirement plan. I don't have a pension. I don't have a company or an employer who is saying, hey, we'll pay this much and we'll match it. That does not exist. So keeping all of these things in mind is also part of that. But for me, what drives me is my why, and why, the passion behind all of this. And somebody said to me the other day, like, LaVonna, I feel like you're always working to improve. And I'm like, oh, that's every day. Every talk I give, I'm working on improving. And the day that I don't care, the day that I don't try to improve, is the day I need to step down. And I said the same thing when I was a teacher, that the day that I come in and I don't want to be there, and I'm portraying that with kids and it's becoming obvious, that's the day I need to retire. And I truly mean that. That is the day I would step down.
That is all right, people. LaVonna is dropping gems today. Early, you mentioned about how you found your niche. How does one discover their niche as a consultant? And what have you done to differentiate yourself and your company from other educational consultants?
So to find your niche, I was funny because some people are always laugh because some people say niche. It's how we say different words, but so niche, yeah, I say it the same way though. I would say become aware of what really lights your world on fire. So the H in SHINE stands for heart, which is passion and purpose. What is it that really lights your world on fire? So it may be where you read a book and you're like, yes, or listen to a podcast, like Dr. Will's show, listening to different topics. It could be going to a conference and sitting on different topics and going, yes, okay, no, that, okay, that's okay. And become aware of you. It's that self-awareness of what is your passion. And when you do that, now you're beginning to understand, okay, this is what makes me excited. This is what I'd like to know more about. And therefore also you become the knowledge person of that to then be able to possibly look at that as a niche. Part of this too is looking at how many people are out there doing that already. And that's some of the first advice I got. But I will tell you, I don't look at that much. So when you talk about differentiating, put it this way, if I do social emotional well-being as part of it, but I guarantee if you brought in 5 other speakers that did that as well, we're not all going to talk about the same thing. We're all going to bring different viewpoints. What I don't support is when it's, well, I'm not going to tell you about so-and-so, or I'm not going to recommend a certain speaker because they also do the same thing and you might choose them over me. And I will honestly say I did not have that exact mindset before, because I had been trained to, like, in scarcity. Like, they're going to bring in one speaker. They're going to only do, and that was wrong thinking, because there's so much of the pie and people will get sick of me. And so, hey, well, here's who else that would bring a different nuance to it, would bring a different perspective to it that you haven't heard from. And then I would hope the same thing, that if somebody else says, okay, you've heard quite a bit from me, but you know who else really would support and extend it in a different way would be LaVonna. And it's not having that narrow mindset and thinking that you're the only one and that nobody else should be able to deliver it. That's part of it. And as far as differentiating, honestly, advice I ever have gotten, and my husband says it to me all the time, is to be you. He says it to me all the time, just be you. And that's how I differentiate myself, because I'm not going to be a fit for everybody, and everybody's going to want my topic or want the way I talk, because I am up. We're up. Like, I even tell people, if you're looking for a sit and get keynote, you're choosing the wrong keynote speaker. Like, I can refer you to other people, but that's not how this is going to go down. And it's being okay with who you are and how you deliver, and understanding it's hard, it's personal, but understand that you are not a fit for every single person. But again, when you're starting out, that's a learning pattern. That is a pathway to explore and to discover, to figure out.
So what is the job market like for consulting? How does one decide their target audience and which clients they want to work with?
That's a good question. It's consulting is, and you'll hear, if you talk to several of us, you will hear that, especially in the beginning, it's feast and famine. It's 1 minute where you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I'm out, getting all these, gigs and being able to help so many people. And then the next month you're like, hello, does anybody know that I'm here? So it's a really, especially in the beginning, it is a feast and famine, ebb and flow, and especially in education. Because if you think about the way our holidays fall, spring break and testing, the end of the year, those are going to be much more of a lull, because professional development is at the forefront. It doesn't mean you won't be doing some, and that does shift and change as reputation gets out there, and as people say, hey, it doesn't matter, when can you come in, then that kind of changes. But it's very much being aware that you have that month of unbelievable amount of gigs, like I said, but then the next month you're thinking, how do I survive this, and how do I pay my bills, and how do I keep this going? And it's easy to become demotivated in that process. So remembering what it is that you set out to do and understanding that those moments happen, but how else can you supplement? So Dr. Will, you even talked about going to courses. That's a passive income that automatically would be coming in, and you wouldn't have to worry about those times when it ebbs and flows. So how can you build it so that you have that cushion, so to speak? And was there a second part to that question?
In terms of who do you work with? Because you can't, I guess you can just accept, like, hey, I do Google, I'm going to work with everybody who wants some Google training, as opposed to saying, look, I'm looking for this type of school district with these type of students with these type of issues. How does one sort of decide the clients they will work with?
Yeah, so I think for me, that's a very personal question for each person to determine. For example, there isn't anyone that I would say I wouldn't work with unless it was out of my wheelhouse, my realm of expertise. Like, I won't do that anymore, because I feel like there's somebody that can serve you better than I can. So again, it's just exploring and figuring out, what are your boundaries, and funding and education can play a part of that. For example, Title I, obviously they have more funding than other schools have that don't receive Title I funding. Title II funding being cut, and there's those things that come into play too, that sometimes, I'm just going to leave it at this. It's a very personal question for somebody to determine. Like, for me, I don't want to say no to anyone if it's going to help students and help teachers be better. but you do have to figure out where that line is, because there is going to be a line that you have to figure out. And then certain group that you're saying, okay, my forte is really this. For example, if you think about it from a teacher perspective, a teacher who does great in the suburbs or the rural areas, to go inner city, that may not be their forte. And then flip that model. So it's the same thing in consulting. You realize, okay, this kind of a group I'm really good at and can help a lot. In this group, I don't have as much experience, or that's not going to be my forte of what I can do.
Excellent. I like that. I know for my wife and I was just telling her, look, I want to be able to focus on sort of smaller school districts that I know don't have certain budgets and don't have people like me who work there who actually deliver that type of training, because I want to be able to provide value for them and get them the type of professional development that I would hope that they would want. And I also like working with gifted populations, because every time I present at a gifted conference, I'm like, this is awesome. Because they're not boggled down by standards and testing, and they're not freaking out. So when I talk to them about projects and expanding and doing all those things, they're like, tell me more. Because that they love that, and that's what their programs are built around.
Mm-hmm.
What has been your biggest challenge since becoming a consultant?
Well, I'll go back to the feast and famine in the beginning. That was a definite shock to me, because I hadn't really thought about that. And the fact that funding can get pulled out, you can have a contract. That was a challenge and a shock for me, that, wait, we have a contract, but if they don't have funding, they don't have funding. And that's something that's a little unique in education, that, in business, you have a contract that they have to fulfill it. Education, when funding gets pulled, there's not a whole lot that you can do with that. I would say another challenge is finding balance, because you have your travel and everything that you do, but you go out for a day, 2 days, 5 days, whatever it may be, and then you get back home. Well, you're looking for, okay, now I have to follow up with the invoicing, and what's the next travel, and what presentation am I doing there, and what audience, how do I tweak it or create it so that it fits for them. And it's constantly the next thing. And so, Eric Francis is another consultant speaker, and he says, when you wake up every day that you're not out on the road, you are unemployed. And he's exactly right? You wake up in the morning and you are unemployed, because you don't have a guarantee of anything. So overcoming that mindset and staying motivated through those times. And, it's funny, because I have a lot of people say to me, LaVonna, I want to do what you do. And by all means, absolutely. If that's what you want to do, go for it. I'm here to support anyone in any way that I can. But a lot of times when I ask them, why do you want to do what I do? Their answer is, because I want to travel. And when I ask them, well, why do you want to travel? They say, well, because I want to see so many things. Well, that's not the reality of the consulting world. The reality is you fly in, you do what you're doing, the best of your ability, and you're flying typically back out. And you can stay another day or two, but take what you just earned and divide that in half, or divide that into thirds. And it quickly just divides. Where all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, hold on. That amount that I thought I was getting, with expenses taken out and paying for the accounting and paying for the travel, everything that comes into play, you have to remember that. So it's finding that balance too, amongst all of that, finding time for you, and if you have a family, time for your family too. And I think that's one of the things that I let go to the wayside more so, was even time for myself. And I preach about that now, and it is a constant battle, but finding that time for me. And so recently I got back into walking/running a little bit. I'm back to eating healthy, and I feel so much better because I'm taking time for me too. So those are most of the challenges. And, if I added one more, I would say it goes back to what you asked about the niche, and it's finding you, because what can often happen is people newer into consulting, or they're going out at conferences or starting to dabble in it, is that you are sharing the ideas and thoughts of others. You're sharing somebody else's creation. But when you start to be paid, you can't do that anymore. You can, but you're going to start losing credibility, because it's, unless you give them full credit and it's not trademarked or anything like that, then, and you're out training on that, which again, educators are often not aware of intellectual property, the extent of it. And I'm being very general with that term there, but trademarks especially, that you just can't go present on it because now you're infringing on copyright and trademark. And just being respectful to somebody else's ideas and thoughts of what they're doing, to then say, oh, you created all this, well, I'm going to take it and go deliver it. So I encourage you to find you, be authentic to who you are, what your expertise is, and go make it happen with that, because you get rid of that self-doubt. So many times we think, well, I'm not good enough, or what I have to offer isn't good enough. Yes, it is. It is. Just make it the best that you possibly can, always striving. And like I said, I'm always willing to help anyone as I can.
That's all right, people. Woo. This is nice, because you're giving me the straight dope, what I really wanted for this podcast, and for other educators out there to learn and understand this is how this game is played. Now, this is a big one right here. All right, because I never talk money, even when I talk to friends of mine who are out there hitting that road hard. I never say, hey man, what kind of money you making? And I'm not going to ask you that either, but the question comes is, how do you deal with pricing? And, your keynotes, the services you offer, and when you know it's time to say no to an offer.
Mm-hmm. And this is a difficult one for me, because I do believe money is a very personal question, and everybody has a different reason for why they charge what they charge. But for people in consulting, I'm going to highly recommend that you find, like, what are other people charging? So for example, starting out, it might be something like $1,500 plus expenses, or $2,500 all inclusive. And those are two different ways that you can look at it. And there's more opportunities of other ways to do it too, but those are the more common ones. But people will push back when they think you're too much. They definitely will, but I think that's a harder thing, is that it's interesting because you can go into the corporate market and do a 45-minute, hour and a half talk, and not uncommon to charge $15,000. In education, what? Yeah, totally different field. So you have to do some of your homework and figure out, what is it that I could charge? What can I not charge? I mean, if you're a guru in education, then that's a different story. But if you are someone starting out and still even just working on making your way and figuring things out, then you've got to find kind of that balance. And this is something that I will say, when people reach out to me directly, I do share what they could charge and why, because it is a very lonely world. I mean, I now have a circle of consultants that we do, hey, have you come across this? How do you deal with that? And I don't mean that just from a money perspective. I mean that from any perspective, because we're new to this and trying to figure it out, and we help each other out. But there are consultants that if you say to them, well, what should I charge? Well, I'm not telling you. You have to figure that out. Or what do you charge? That's my business, not yours. And I respect their opinion, because that is their opinion and it's their personal life of what they're doing. But I have no problem helping consultants, because if you don't have anybody to ask, then how do you find out? But I will say, beginning is, I would start lower, get some of that experience. Mm-hmm. And the biggest hurdle, I think, for educational consultants is understanding that you do have worth. Mm-hmm. What you have to offer, value you, and don't second guess yourself. And I kind of mentioned that a little bit before, but I think that's critical. And I'm always amazed that people push back based upon whether they have seen me or not seen me. But that makes sense. What are we getting? Is she going to be good? Is she going to be what we want? Is it going to be a waste of our money? Is it a waste of our time? Could we find another different resource, that's someone that might be better or fit better? Those kinds of things all play into that.
Okay. And since you mentioned that, I want to throw this out there to you, because Twitter has been amazing for me to raise my profile and build relationships to people, to where I do now get paid to write articles for EdTech publications, and other things. People have reached out to me to do other things because of that. How, I guess, are you using social media, or how can an educational consultant use social media to build their brand, to raise their profile, to get on the radar of those decision makers, and to sort of raise their status to get higher paying gigs?
Yeah. So it's funny you bring this up because this was just a conversation yesterday that I had in education. Again, we're just a little unique and different of how we view things, but social media is a beautiful platform to let others know what you have to offer. The thing is that it comes into play where people say it's self-promotion, it's bragging, it's negative, negative, negative. And that I find it interesting again, because when you look at any other industry, it's not an issue at all. So I think it just becomes kind of a little bit of a fine line, is when is it self-promotion and bragging versus when are you building your brand? And I'm going to go back to do you, because on social media, people have the ability to follow you or unfollow you. They have the ability to block you if they want. But be aware, have some good people who are also going to be very honest with you. Like for me, I don't like to, as a matter of fact, people tell me I need to promote myself more. I don't like to do that. That's just not who I am, but it's nothing wrong with it for the people that do. It's just not me. I am more about, adding positivity and adding value and changing things. And if people are interested, then great. Let's see what we can do to work together. But it becomes a little bit of a hardship. But what's interesting is I thought about this today, that over the past 10 years, I think my Twitter account says I started in 2008, and I was like, what? Because I didn't really get on Twitter until 2012. So, and I think it might have been, maybe actually might have been even later than that. Like it's more recent for me that Twitter, Facebook is more social media. And that's beautiful, because as a consultant, you can let so many other people know and become aware of what you do. So as they are looking for ideas and strategies, or whether it's a speaker or consultant to come in, they have that platform to go to follow you and decide, okay, what is happening here? What do they have to offer? Do I like it or not like it? Whereas before, like when I started, it was, I guess it was around, but I didn't even think about it. And I never even thought about the fact that you could brand yourself on social media. Like that never even crossed my mind. And like I said, to this day, I still have trouble with that, because that's not what I'm looking to do. But at the same time, that's probably where I could be a better business person by thinking about that. So, I don't know. It's a learning curve for so many of us.
Oh yeah, I hear you. I'm definitely using it to, if I present at a conference, I'm like, I'm doing this, throw some pictures out there. Now I have a Twitter account for our company, and I've been neglectful of that. And of course I push out my podcasts. But it's definitely, I think it's just because it's free, and I don't, you don't have to pay a marketing agency to come up with some kind of ad campaign. It can just be you doing what you do to build relationships with people and to raise, your profile, like, Angela Myers, you matter. She's taking that straight to the bank. And I love it. But,
Awesome.
to be able to do something that you are passionate about, to make the impact so you can make the income, I just look at that as a win-win.
Right. No, definitely.
Awesome. This show is so good. I hate to save it, but I've rolled out too many podcasts this week. This is a great episode. And I thank you, LaVonna, for taking time out of your schedule to be on this show. You have no idea how much this means to me and what you have shared, because I want the people that will listen to this show, whether they follow us on Twitter or not, but to understand that they have value. Mm-hmm. And whether they're looking to go full time as a consultant, or I just want to dabble, just don't get taken advantage of, someone giving you a badge and a t-shirt, and you're like, yes, I made it. And I'm like, where's your check?
Yeah, because something I haven't mentioned that you just reminded me of too, is that when you are on your own, like you have benefits you have to pay for, and those are not cheap. So be thankful for the benefits that your school district currently provides.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why I tell myself, because I've had, full-time people like yourself, but, they work outside of education on my show. They really talk about entrepreneurship, and they say, hey, this is a grind, it's a daily grind, all this stuff. And I say, hey, I'm not an entrepreneur in that classical sense. Now, even though I know that my district could fire me tomorrow, but I like having some semblance of comfort, sort of knowing, okay, my insurance is coming in, my check is coming in, and on the side, let me sort of build my mini empire, on the side. That's because, if I had to be one of those things, because my brother, his money flows like that because he's a real estate. He's in real estate. So sometimes that money is real big. Mm-hmm. And then if he doesn't do a bunch of selling in 1 month, hey, it's not it's like, whoo, what's going on? I don't know if I can live like that. That's kind of scary. It's kind of scary to me. So before we go, what is your advice to that educator who is thinking about taking that leap, either full time or as a side gig, but they don't know where to start?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having me on here. I'm honored to be on here, Dr. Will, and I'm glad I didn't let you down today, and hopefully I don't let the listeners down either. So my advice would be to start at conferences. You do have to have some kind of experience, and it gives a chance for you to practice and to see, is this what I really want to do? Because that's just a piece of it, the speaking. Getting some feedback, and especially honest feedback on what did people think and the content and the delivery, what could you shift on and make better, to then gradually going out and getting some paid gigs, some things that would do it. But again, I'm going to go back to you've got to have the passion for whatever it is that you choose to do. So you can last for a while on, saying I could do that, I could do that, I could do that. But just to me, your credibility is going to be better if you don't try to do that you create, what did I do in my classroom? That was my own thoughts. And it's not that you can't incorporate other people's thoughts and ideas, but give them credit. But how do I design this and make this where it is my stuff and I'm passionate about it? And I saw it work the magic with kids because of, the results they had or the way that they reacted to it and what they had to say. And when you take those components, you're on the right path. But also talk to other consultants, talk to people who are making it happen, and find out, like something from this podcast, even to others, to say, well, how did you do this? And what advice you have? I'm just one person giving some advice today, but there are a world of consultants out there that even have a difference of opinion, but listen to all of that to make the decision that is best for you. Because anytime I ask a question from 5 people, I'm going to get 5 different answers, 5 different opinions, but I'm the one in the end that has to make the decision on what's best for me and what I'm trying to accomplish, my why.
Shine, shine.
Are you writing a new song for us, Dr. Will?
Ooh, this is so good. So good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I love LaVonna Inc., by the way. That's just a tight name. I love it.
Thanks. It's just, people, my name is a mouthful anyway, so I don't even introduce myself as LaVonna Roth anymore. I just say, I'm LaVonna, because otherwise you're like, wait, what?
That's
right. So
I
just say LaVonna. It's not a common name, so it's not like there's going to be a bunch of other people out there with that name. So that's why I went with LaVonna Inc., but I don't really like it being my name. It was some advice I got, and I wish I hadn't taken it, but that's all right.
I'm going to tell you why you should keep it.
All right.
Because it's you are bringing yourself. The shine is all you. And I remember talking to Jennifer Gonzalez. We all know as Cult of Pedagogy.
Yep.
I went to her, just like, look, I want to change my podcast name, right? I want to change my podcast name because I don't know if I want to sort of keep this thing built around me. And she said, Will, you keep it because you have built something that people recognize as you. Because she said she has gone to conference or whatever, and people are like, I love the Cult of Pedagogy. They talk about her podcast, but they don't know that it's her.
Yep. That's true.
And she said, you keep it, Will, because there's no mistake that they know it's you. And so I will pass the same advice on, is keep it as you, because no one is you. And I know a lot of cats in the game, doing it. And you are definitely an original. And I would say, keep going with your name.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate your advice and your words, your kind words. So thank you. And I like Dr. Will because that is you.
Well, thank you. I guess it's a blessing and a curse because when I try to do other things sort of outwards, I'm kind of like, how can I do this? Because I don't want to spread things too far. I love my podcast. I'm going to continue to focus on this business stuff. But outside of my podcast, I must get out there and write about going one-to-one and blended learning and how does technology transform your classroom, because I mean, that's just what I do. And I am definitely passionate about it. So I got to make sure that is done so that this podcast doesn't sort of dwarf that. And people are like, what happened to my jobs? I can't confuse people like that. So again, LaVonna, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. So people, you know how to do this. The video cast is going up on YouTube. I need you to subscribe, leave me some comments. The podcast is going up on iTunes, SoundCloud. Again, I need you to respond and give me some comments and subscribe and all that good stuff, because I'm trying to get Oprah on the show. And I need to be dope for Oprah, okay? I need to
Oprah, we need Oprah.
Yes. Then I'm going to close up shop. I'm like, I've done all I need to do. Thank you for coming. Good night. So people, as always, invest in you, EDU, peace.